over 50% of US adults are obese. There needs to be a great newsletter out there for people who are thinking about taking Ozempic or any one of those injectable weight loss drugs. The name is admittedly a little offensive. Fat Chance, Don't Wait, or Wait Over.
I don't love the name. The game you don't want to be in is the game that everybody else who's in this space is in. I would go after them and I would say, hey, you have the magic thing now that has fixed this for you. Now we got to figure out the rest and let's make you this exciting person that you want to be. The one that would make this so much easier is if you went through this journey yourself.
If we ever did this, we'd make a ton of money.
We're going to make you eat 10 donuts every day for a month and then see what happens.
I would sell feet pics if I could to make money on the internet. All right, Louis, I got to give credit where credit is due this week. You probably had one of the best LinkedIn posts about newsletters in a very long time. And we'll put it up on the screen for anybody watching. And if you're not watching, you should go do that on YouTube and subscribe and like. But I'll read it here really quickly. So you said, newsletter people keep talking about how there's a big opportunity to build businesses, quote, on top of newsletters. For example, build a newsletter about marketing, then use it to launch a marketing software product to your audience. I think this is a great idea, ... in theory, but there's a problem. Building a good newsletter is hard and takes a unique skill set. Building a viable software business is harder and takes a different unique skill set. Not that many people have what it takes to do either of those things. Very few have what it takes to do both. What prompted you to fire that off? That sounds like it was potentially directed at somebody.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it wasn't directed at like any one person, but I had been on newsletter Twitter just a few minutes before, and I was scrolling through and I'd seen like 5 people who were saying, yeah, you should go and start a newsletter so that you can build another business on top of it, right? Like the way to get ahead, like the big opportunity of right now is like, go build a newsletter about marketing, then go build some marketing software, go build a local newsletter, and then become a real estate agent and sell real estate. And I was
Right.
like, both of those things seem pretty hard to do. Like it's maybe it's not quite as easy as it's being made to seem. So I got a little bit grumpy.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of become a common thing for people to say is like, I'm going to build the audience and then I'll figure out what to do with it. And that's such a it's like kind of this bold, cocky move that you're like, yes, I'm good enough to build a newsletter, which is hard, right? To your point. And then I'm also so good that I can just go build a software company or SaaS company on top of it. But let's for a second assume, right? Like I've been writing, a newsletter for 8 years now almost, and I have not built, a SaaS company on top of it. I've actually shut down 2 paid versions of a newsletter, right? So I couldn't even figure out, how to make a paid newsletter work. So what do you think somebody should do instead of saying, hey, my goal is to build a SaaS company on top of it? One thing, I'll give you a second to think about it. One thing I was thinking about was it may make more sense to go out and try to partner with somebody that, has a SaaS business that's, kind of in your field, right? So if you're, a marketing newsletter, right, go partner with an ad tech or something. And maybe it's something where you could be their top of funnel and you could take a stake in them, right? So it's not you necessarily building this thing from the ground up and figuring out how to build a software company, but you're going out and finding somebody who's really damn good at it already and just partnering with them and getting a little bit of that upside. And the nice part is that you can go and do this with a bunch of companies, right? It's like go take stakes and, kind of spread your bets out a little bit. But do you have any thoughts on what you should do?
Yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, I love that idea. I think for myself, when I was writing that post, I guess what I was really directing it at was people who have neither a newsletter nor a successful business yet, right? And they're like, okay, so I'm not going to try and go and do this incredibly hard thing. I'm not going to try and go and do this other incredibly different hard thing. I'm going to try and do both at the same time because somehow that's going to make it easier, apparently.
Right.
And
right.
That's the bit that I was really railing against, was this idea of like, if you want to do X, you should go and do Y other difficult thing at the same time because it's going to somehow make it easier. Which I think that part is absolute nonsense. Like That's crazy to me.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I think, right, if you have a great SaaS or software idea, like I implore you, stop listening to this podcast right now and go and build that, because in all likelihood you're going, well, I wouldn't say in all likelihood, the upside is much greater if you can build a great software company than building a great newsletter, right? So go build that, and then if you want to market it with newsletters, come to me, or come to the many thousands of newsletters that are created every day and use them as top of funnel, or go to social media and sling your wares on Facebook or something. But I mean, I think like if you even think that you could build a software company, I'd recommend going and doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me is like if you have a newsletter already, I actually don't think there's anything wrong with trying to build some kind of business on top of it. Probably most people should be doing that. If it's like the full-time thing and they've got sponsorships, they've got affiliate deals, they've got all the other ways they're monetizing. Mm-hmm. Building a business on top of that, whether that's services, software, done for you stuff, info products, whatever it is, try it. Right? Like there's no harm in trying it. It doesn't prevent you from partnering with other people. Like I really like your suggestion of doing that, but like you can build your own thing and still partner with someone else, right? Like you don't have to take like an equity stake or like do sponsorships with some partner. You can just hire somebody. If your newsletter is going well, you can hire someone and try and figure it out, and you have all the time in the world to play around with it. I think just don't build a newsletter like because you're hoping that that's going to somehow magically help you sell some random software or services business way in the future, right? And people, they gave me a bunch of really good examples of like newsletters that had built out like businesses on top of them, and also businesses that had either bought or launched their own newsletter where the newsletter was successful as well and was a good newsletter. But none of those
Let me guess,
like,
they pointed out the hustle in HubSpot.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the hustle in HubSpot. There was Greg Eisenberg and his like software and his design agency on top of his newsletter. There's a bunch of other ones as well that I saw.
Yeah, I think we could probably blame. I love Greg Eisenberg's podcast, but I feel like he goes from zero to. He makes it seem like it's very easy to go from 0 to 100. He says this a lot, right? It's like build the audience. That's like his thing, is like build the community, and then you can just kind of figure out how to monetize them with like a business. And I think people listening to that may underestimate like how damn smart Greg Eisenberg is, and like how good he is at building these kinds of businesses. Like he is like that rare case who's probably good at both things.
Yeah. And I don't completely hate the idea. Like I look at like what Ryan Snedden's done with Naptown Scoop, for example, right? Where he's turned his local newsletter basically into like a luxury like bathroom rental service. Like, those, what do you call them in the US? Like porta potty, portaloo.
Potty.
Yeah, those things. That's like the business he's built on top of it right now.
Yeah.
Like if you have the audience and you've built it, play around, you'll probably a smart person probably will find something that they could build on top of that newsletter.
But I guess feel like that's a fairly straightforward. I wouldn't say it's an easy business. No business is easy, but it's like a common sense business, and it toes the line of it's kind of a service business, right? And like I think to your point, a service business actually makes a lot of sense to tack on. Like if you're good at something and you're writing about it, right? It's like a great top of funnel, but then like bridging that gap between being like, oh, all of a sudden I'm an engineer, or I went and hired a bunch of engineers to create this software, is like, seems like a bit of a quantum leap for most people who have not worked in software before.
Yeah, but I mean, it is, I think, for sure, but I don't think that's necessarily an issue, to be honest. Like I think you can, if you have a newsletter that's doing so well that you can afford to pay for like engineers to go and work on something for a while, or like to test out a software idea. I've done it a bunch of times. It's not actually that hard anymore to find people who can help you do this. Like you can work with someone who'll do the entire thing basically for you, as long as you have the idea and the audience. So I don't dislike people trying that at all. My thing is like, even if you're like Ryan and you're like, let's pretend that he actually knew he was going to launch this toilet business before the newsletter, right? That was like his secret plan was like, step 1, I'm going to build a newsletter. Step 2, I'm going to launch toilets. Step 3, profit, right? Like let's imagine like that's the situation. Like he didn't need the newsletter to launch the toilet business. Like he would have, like if that was really what he wanted to do, like just build the toilet business, and then if you want a newsletter, you can always build one afterwards. Like don't build one because you think that that's the best way to get to the other one. Like it's if either of them are even like a little bit risky, like whether you don't know that you can do both of them, don't do them both at the same time. Do the one that is the riskier one first, and then if that works, do the other one afterwards if you can. I think.
Yes, I tend to agree with you. I think my big takeaway from this is like, it actually probably says a lot about the newsletter business that people think they need to start one with like this other grand vision in mind. I'm like, that kind of scares me. Is like, is the ad driven and kind of subscription model so broken that people think they can't start a newsletter, without this? Or I mean, I don't know, maybe there's just some dumb people out there.
I think it's also partly like I think you see this a lot in the newsletter space at the moment. At least I do. And maybe I'm just like a cynical, horrible person, but it does kind of make me
Definitely.
laugh a little bit. Like, I kind of remember, I'm the grandpa now, like 2016, 2017, 2018, there's a bunch of people like building newsletters. And sure, they were serious about it. They were enjoying it. But it was kind of like, yeah, I added 100 subscribers over here. I added 1,000 subscribers over here. And I'm enjoying this. I'm writing it. We could try and monetize it some way. We'll see what we do. Maybe there's like, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, I can probably do services or a course or something like that, right? We're thinking about it. And now you go on like X, and like, because newsletters are cool, there's like a bunch of mainly bros who are like, yep, I am operating and like crushing the hell out of this local media empire. And I added 17 new subscribers yesterday. Like cost per acquisition is like 15 cents. I'm crushing it. And it's like, I kind of get why, like for them, I think a lot of them have to be like, oh, I have this grand plan of like, I'm building this into some sort of like empire that is going to have software, and I'm going to launch an investment fund and whatever else it is, right? Like an SPV or something. And it's like, okay, maybe not, but like, I get why you're trying to like make what you're doing seem a lot more exciting and like big online in a way.
Yeah. I think it's also, it's damn near impossible to raise any like real money for a newsletter or media business. So yeah, I guess if you are trying to build something in this space and you want to raise some money or you just don't have the capital to do it, it's probably good to put in your pitch deck that you're going to build some software at the end of the day, right? That's going to fetch a much bigger multiple than, your ad driven newsletter. So I think those 2 points go together. And I agree. There's probably some shitheads online that are kind of ruining it for everyone.
Yeah. The other thing that I found really interesting, but just on this point of like people who are just so like aggressive about what they're building and the value of what they're building. One of the places that I noticed this change happen was when Beehive launched their affiliate program, because their affiliate program is so generous. I would bet an interesting amount of money that the average Beehive user makes more from their affiliate code than they make actually from Beehive, from their newsletter. Not all of them. There's a load of great newsletters on that, but a suspiciously high percentage are going to be making a lot more money from the affiliate code than they are, because it's a really generous affiliate thing, right?
I will say it is a real stream of income. I have a consulting business. Most of my clients are on Beehive. Not because of that. I kind of introduce them and give them the option to go anywhere. I will say, just from the handful of clients that I put on there for some fairly big newsletters, it is a nice revenue stream. I mean, they pay you 50% of the first year's fees, right? It's very nice.
Yeah, and they put up their prices quite a lot recently. So like that at the beginning, it wasn't actually that much. Now it's a considerable amount that people are making. And I don't think it's a coincidence that as soon as that became a thing, this affiliate sort of like play, we started to see a lot more people talking about how amazingly they were crushing it with their own newsletters on Twitter, and happening to go, tag in Beehive and say, you should start one too with their affiliate link. Right.
Right.
Oh, okay. Like I get it. Like
I'm Tyler Dank retweet,
Yeah, exactly. And you get the Beehive link and everyone, like it's great marketing for them. But I think it's funny. Like I definitely don't think that's a coincidence that people have started like hyping up their own newsletters so much more as like a way, because like, actually, I'm not making that much money from this newsletter, but every time I talk about my newsletter, I make money from selling Beehive. So maybe I should just like talk more about that. It's kind of funny.
It's funny because I was recently having with like my kind of monetization ad sales team, we were actually talking about running ads in the water coolest for Beehive just because of that. Like we could make a lot of money just because of the affiliate, right? And yeah, it feels weird like trying to get more people into this game for I don't know if it's like a it's not a bad reason, but it just yes, I don't love it. Like if you're gonna join Beehive anyways, like yeah, like that's nice that I get a cut of it. But yeah, it does feel weird. I keep going back and forth and like, do we want to just like keep jamming people into the ecosystem that like probably don't need a newsletter?
I don't know about that, but I just thought it was fun, interesting aside that I noticed recently. So you tried a paid newsletter on top of the water coolers twice. Would you ever try anything else as like monetization on top?
Bro, I would sell feet pics if I could to make money on the internet. Yeah, I mean, I would. I don't know what it would be. I've had some conversations recently about partnering with people who are doing a much better job at what I tried to build, right? And that was like during COVID. That was more of a just like deeper dive. Like you got extra content on the weekends. The second time around, more recently, was more of I wouldn't say like a stock picking, but I guess if you looked at it from the outside, that's kind of what it would look like. It was more of like my analysis. I rounded up, so I looked at it as kind of a curation of some of the best picks that I found on the internet that week, and it did okay, right? But it just like it didn't end up being worth the time that I was spending on it, and I never got kind of enough traction. I also probably didn't have the infrastructure. I was kind of just doing it all on my own. So my thought process was shut that down, potentially go work with somebody who has a much better product that is going to get people to stick around, work out an affiliate deal with them. And I could potentially do that, across multiple, right? Because I was focusing on very standard traditional finance, like buy and hold, some fairly boring stuff, right? But it's like, if I can go work with Motley Fools of the world, maybe someone who's doing it in crypto, maybe someone who's doing it in alternative assets, right? The net of that is going to add up to more than I was making on my own for, in theory, less work, and I'm providing more value to the users. So that's kind of my next step that I'm in discussions with some folks on.
Nice, I like that. I think partnering up with other providers, a lot of the time it tends to make sense. And you can build your own products as well. The one that I find interesting is like more of like the Robinhood with the snacks, and when they bought Charter and they're buying out a bunch of other newsletters, I think, launching their own. HubSpot launching their own different newsletters, but also obviously buying the hustle. I think a lot of people, like I always go back and forth on that, because a lot of people I think assume that they're like buying the hustle to get access to like new customers that they couldn't otherwise reach. And I think it's kind of slightly...
a really big waste of money if they are.
Yeah, I think it's kind of slightly different, right? I think the idea to me there is almost like, at some point in your life, maybe you're going to buy a house. At some point in your life, you're going to need a plumber. At some point in your life, you're probably going to set up a bank account if you don't have one already, right? There's like a bunch of stuff. At some point in your life in the B2B world, you're probably going to purchase a CRM system, right? Like HubSpot. And I think presumably what they want to be doing with the hustle, or what they should be doing with the hustle, is just being like, hey, if we can just remind you every day that HubSpot exists and that it's good and that it's recommended by something that you like, probably you're not going to buy it today, probably you're not going to buy it tomorrow, in a month, a year, but one day you are going to wake up and need a CRM, and we're going to be the ones that you remember, right?
And that's like the entire model of the HubSpot media network. I can't say this across all, but I know for my first million, they don't have any outside ads. It's all HubSpot, or there's some Hampton and other things, but that's all kind of the guys' stuff. I don't think there's any outside ads on any of their their stuff in the network. So it really is kind of this play, and that's to your point. That's why I love B2B newsletters, because it's kind of still the last holdout of of awareness dollars. And it truly is the point, right? It's like, yeah, not everyone needs like to implement like a new ERP system or Oracle or Amazon Web Services, every day. But when you do, like, Amazon wants to be the one that's top of mind and not Google and Microsoft.
Yeah. It always makes me wonder, like, how much, I don't know how much the HubSpot paid for the hustle, but I was wondering if there's like an easier way to get that visibility in front of people. Like, if you just came up with like a really cool, like, coffee mug or something that had the HubSpot logo on it, I wonder if it would have been cheaper just to send everybody like a HubSpot mug and just have them like, but like a cool one that they had at home, and or
Yeah.
like a water bottle, like a nice water bottle or something, and then just every day they're reminded of HubSpot in that way. Like,
I've heard kind of ranges, but I've heard from like 25 million to 30 plus million. So let's call it, 30 million. Yeah, there's a lot of marketing that you could do with $30 million. So it'll be very interesting, and maybe it's in 10 years or something where they kind of do a post-mortem on if the HubSpot media network paid out, right? Because they're clearly paying a lot of money and they're not seeing necessarily like a direct ROI or even like any direct income coming from it, right? So
I mean, I think it's hard in the case of the hustle, right? Because they had a much bigger turnover, I would say, of like the really key people than, for example, Morning Brew did when they were bought. Obviously, people did leave Morning Brew right after the acquisition. Some of them were really great, important people, but Morning Brew wasn't quite as dependent on like Sampar and Steph Smith and like a couple of like almost personality style people in a way.
Right.
Like Neil was great at Morning Brew, but like most people, I think, were not like, it was more easily to sort of like replace and retain with someone equally as talented. It didn't have to be the name in that sense. So let's move on. Do you want to add anything else on?
I have a new newsletter idea that I want to pitch you.
Yeah, let's do it.
So last week we did something where I shared a tactic that I'm using in the water coolers, or started using. This week I have a brand new newsletter that I want you to roast it. So I'm going to give you the idea, the content, how I plan to monetize it, how I want to grow it. I even have the names picked out. So I'm just going to kind of spew it all out there for you, and then you tell me what you think. Sound good?
Hit me. I'm excited. I want, can I steal it if it works?
Yes, you can.
Okay, let's do it.
And anyone else, though, who steals it, we have to split it 51. I get 51%, 49%. Okay, so the name of the newsletter, this is what I want to start with, is either, I have three choices: Fat Chance, Don't Wait, spelled WEIGHT, or Wait Over. And so these are all working titles. They may be offensive to some people when I tell you what this newsletter is about, but you probably guessed it's something about weight loss. My idea is that there needs to be a great newsletter out there for people who are thinking about taking Ozempic or Wegovy or any one of those insanely popular injectable weight loss drugs. And you might have noticed that I said potentially thinking about taking them, right? Because actually, when I was looking at the numbers, I actually don't think there's probably an opportunity, right, in people who are taking them, but I actually think the opportunity is much bigger in people who are not taking them yet. And I'll tell you why. Because according to the data, approximately 15.5 million US adults are currently taking an injectable weight loss medication like Ozempic or Wegovy. Keep in mind that there are like 330 million people in the US. Let's assume, 3/4 of those are adults who could potentially take this. And it's probably also safe to assume that most of them are overweight or obese.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
Yeah.
Assume 3/4. I was like,
No. But I have the stat here. 50%, over 50% of U.S. adults are obese in the U.S. So that's about 100 million people. Not even overweight, like obese, which I think means you have whatever, like a 30% above BMI. So not great. And so the number of people currently taking Wegovy or Ozempic is about 6% of the adult population. And here's the stat that kind of got me. While many have tried these drugs, around 50 to 75% of the users discontinue them within a year. And obviously there's a lot of reasons for that. Maybe it worked super well. You lose your weight and you're like, okay, now I'm going to just go show off my great body at the beach. Or a lot of people end up getting like super sick. Like I've heard a ton of people say, within the first couple of weeks, they just have to stop using it. So my idea is that there's the total addressable market is just much more massive for people who are let's call it Ozempic curious, or like
Mm.
want to do this thing. Like, I need to lose weight. My doctor probably mentioned it to me. I'm not exactly sure what what I should do. Maybe it's Ozempic, maybe it's something else, but I want to get on this newsletter to learn a little bit more about it. So here's a couple of the things that I want to put in the actual newsletter. One would be the latest news, right? There's always these, I think it can draw people in, right? There's always the like, did Kelly Clarkson and Beyonce take Ozempic, before the Oscars, right? There's always these headlines. I always see people having Ozempic face, or the crazy, like, you're growing a tail because you started taking Ozempic, those sort of things. So I think those are kind of like, fun and light to get people interested. It's just a roundup of what people are talking about this thing. It's like, if I'm going to go on this, what can I expect? Then I think the other part of this newsletter that's like the true value add, I think that might just be a bit of a hook, is what I want to call second opinion. And so this is something where I want to interview doctors, or nutritionists, folks like that, and get their thoughts on, whether somebody should take Ozempic. And there's obviously going to be people who are out there and say, just do it the old fashioned way, like go lose weight, stop eating as much, you fat bastard, right? And there's others who are going to say, no, it works really well, you should try it, all that. I think you want to go and get both sides of the opinion, because again, the point of this newsletter is really to just make people, give people all of the facts. To be fair, I don't know if that's actually legal or not, right? If I can like go out and give opinions, but I think if you put the proper, terms in there and say like, hey, we're not a doctor, this is just one person's opinion. I imagine it's kind of like the finance world in that sense. And then I think the other section that you can put in here is the other options, right? So, okay, yeah, there's like Ozempic, but then there's also, there's kind of Weight Watchers. I don't know if that's a thing, over in the UK and Europe, but there's like Weight Watchers. So like other programs you can join. There's, just working out. So there's like, workout plans, all the other stuff that you can do to lose weight. Obviously, there's been a ton of that stuff around. So it's kind of laying out all the options, and it's taking you through that consideration journey. And that's where the idea for monetization comes in, right? So I think probably the biggest monetization play is a company that's called Hims and Hers. I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but they basically launched, the idea behind them was they take all of these drugs that are either coming off patent or generic, and they just like run the D2C model on them, right? So they started with Viagra. When that came off patent, they started doing it with hair loss drugs. They've just run a ton of ads on Instagram and Facebook, and it does really well. So they started to getting into these weight loss drugs basically by doing, I won't go into like the full nuance, but basically these drugs were like on an FDA shortage. So there was like this loophole where they were able to make them. So they started like slinging these things. It was going really well. Now they're off shortage. So I don't actually know where any of this stands, but those companies are making either compounded drugs that are kind of like these, or they're giving you all sorts of other options for drugs that work for weight loss. So those companies are swimming with money. They need to advertise. So there's a bunch of these companies that are, the online kind of D2C pharmacies that I'd work with. Again, the legality of like working directly with a Novo Nordisk or something who makes Ozempic, I don't know if you can actually like work with them in a newsletter. I don't see why not. I just think there'd be a lot of hoops to jump through. It'd probably be fairly hard. So I'd work with like the Instagram companies. The other monetization, I would work with like all the other alternatives, right? So saying, hey, you don't just need to go and take Ozempic. You could sign up for Weight Watchers or Noom or any of these other guys that are, going to help you lose weight, any of the apps out there. And then I think the other option is like just slinging all these snake oils that are out there. So obviously there's like the apps, but these products, right? And I think there's a market for a newsletter, and we've talked about this in the past. All the stuff that people are selling on TikTok Shop, and like I don't know, like creatine and mushroom coffee, all of this kind of stuff. I think these are the exact type of people that you're going to get on this audience that, or on this newsletter and in this audience that are going to want to buy that stuff. So I think you can do it that way. So those are kind of the things from an ad perspective. And then I think you could also sell a course for when people do convert to Ozempic users. And my thought was to do it along the lines of, and you probably haven't been through this yet, but what to expect when you're expecting. It's this app that basically you follow along with, like, okay, you're 11 weeks pregnant, right? Your baby is the size of a poppy seed and its heart is developing and like it doesn't have eyeballs yet, right? And you kind of follow this along, and every single person, I promise you, that has, at least with their first kid, has downloaded this app or some variation of it. And so I think there's an opportunity to do something like that with kind of this Ozempic journey. So you're capturing them pretty early in their journey before they even get into it. And then you sell them on this course of like, hey, we're this trusted, advisor, and we built this course. And it's just kind of a what to expect while you're going through this process. Like, yeah, like you may throw up the first time you take Ozempic, or like, here are some foods that you should probably be eating to make sure you get enough protein so you don't lose muscle mass, those sorts of things. And I think that's like your big sales point. And I think you can do the same on the opposite side, where if people decide they don't want Ozempic, right, you could either partner with, again, a Noom or Weight Watchers, or you could make your own kind of courses and be like, hey, if you wanted to, if you go on Noom or if you go on Weight Watchers, or if you just want to lose weight the old fashioned way, here's a bunch of, workouts that we created for people who, are 35, write newsletters and, are overweight. So I think those are kind of the ways you monetize. And then I think I think actually probably the easiest part here is the audience development and growth. Because I don't know if you remember that stat, but I said there are 100 million obese people in the US. And I know it's a pretty competitive market, but I think if you're building this thing, you probably just go out and run ads against this on Facebook to build this newsletter, or work with kind of the Spark Loops or the the other ones of this world. And I think there's so many people out there who fit this category that you're going to get a lot of subscribers on this newsletter. I'll stop there. Please roast my newsletter, Fat Chance.
Okay, so I don't love the name.
Okay, the name is admittedly a little offensive, and I don't think you can get away with it. It's going to piss off like 90% of the people. So, yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure. Like, I think
you definitely can't say fat. Maybe I could get away with like weight over or don't wait or something like that.
Yeah.
But
morning chew. Why not? You can go with that.
Well, I like the morning chew. Yeah. I'm sure that exists, but
I thought it started off kind of badly, and then you won me over with the creatine, with the courses, with that side of things, because like I like the space in general. I don't want to do this newsletter. It's not something for me. Like it's definitely like it has the temptation to go into like the sketchier side of newsletters. With this is going to be a little bit too high for me. That's probably where the real money's to be made in this. So
tell me what you mean by that.
The whole like Alex Jones kind of thing, right? Like my husband took Ozempic and now he's a chicken kind of story, right? Like
yeah,
that kind of thing is like you have to,
I definitely think you need to be careful with those headlines. I think they're almost like important to put for credibility, because I think you just want to always show like both sides of everything, because I don't think you want to just like pitch the fact that you're so pro Ozempic and you want to get people to use it. I think you want to like show both sides. Like I think that why having the doctors or nutritionists or whoever kind of come on and fight for both sides of the story and say like, yeah, you should do it. You should not do it. You should do it the old fashioned way. So I do think that's, seeing both sides is important here.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, when I think about like the opportunity here, like I think you can go in a couple of different directions, right? And my big feedback is I think this is like, it's too broad. It's trying to get too many people in for this. And with like such a big market, like I probably wouldn't try and do like this one newsletter for everybody. I think there's a there's the Alex Jones style thing, right? Which is where you go, okay, I'm going to get the crazies. My whole pitch is going to be that Ozempic is in the water somehow now. And if you don't buy my $200 a month powder that comes, with my newsletter subscription, it might get you and your kids might, vote Dem or something like that, right? Like you can do that. I think the more realistic one that I would be more interested in is like pick a segment of people. Go after the men. Go like men 25 to 40 who are taking Ozempic and like really actually need it, right? Or go for, that's what I would gravitate to because it's what I know best. But you could also pick women. You could pick slightly older women, right? You could pick women in that age range, whatever you want. Pick like a group of people. And then I wouldn't go for the whole like debate around Ozempic and Wegovy and all these things because you have to catch people at such a specific moment. And that is when everybody else is spending money on them, right? Like all these drug companies, everybody is trying to find those people and spend money on them. And once they've bought into those things, they can't sell them those things anymore, right? They're just going to keep retaining them. So that's when they become less interesting. But also, like for a newsletter, I think that trying to get somebody who's just about to make a decision, unless the thing you want to sell them is like a very expensive course on how to make that decision properly, is probably not a really good time to try and get someone because the retention is going to be super low. And it's going to be difficult to write something that is like really interesting for people who are making that decision, but is also interesting for people afterwards. So like the thing that I like the most, like if I were to like pick into your idea, I would narrow it down and I would do something like I say, okay, men who are, 25 to 40, maybe still in that like potentially still single, kind of younger, still care about their looks, still care about all that, like that kind of stuff. I would go after them and I would say, hey, so you've started taking one of these things. I love the app idea of like, here's what to expect. And there is a whole bunch of stuff that you can build out a really good angle there of like, okay, so Ozempic is going to fix this issue for you. And this is going to happen over the next 12 to 16 to 18 weeks. But we've still got a bunch of other stuff that you need to do. And I'm going to tell you and inform you and like put a little bit of fear into you, but in like a non-sketchy way of like, okay, you know that you have to start working out now, right? Because if you don't eat a load of protein and if you don't go to the gym, like you're going to lose bone density, right? This is going to be really dangerous for you when you're older. You're going to look bad in your clothes, even though you're going to be skinny, right? So all of that kind of stuff, right? And then you can sell them on the creatine and you can partner up with someone or you can just do your own, right? Like the margins on that is so good and it's so easy to outsource, like creatine and creatine gummies and stuff is incredibly easy to do. I love the paid subscription idea. I love the challenges idea. You can bring people into a paid subscription and just kind of go, hey, like share your journeys. You come through with us. We're going to have like when you complete these things, maybe we'll even have like a prize or a payout and anyone who's in the community can be part of this. You could even go niche than that. You can have local meetups. There's a bunch of stuff you can do right around like referrals to.
Ooh, I like the idea of a run club associated with this. Run clubs are hot right now.
Yeah, very hot. There's loads of content you can do around like clothing and how to like buy different clothing and like how to feel comfortable in that. You can do I think a really big way that you can monetize and market up to people is like a lot of people who are losing a lot of weight, they need some sort of like reconstructive surgery afterwards, or they need something to help them with like the loose skin and everything like that, right? So helping them figure that out and go to the right places. I think there's a bunch of stuff there. If you can get someone who's just opted in and help them like improve, because losing the weight is going to help them feel good, but it's going to bring with it a host of other issues and problems. And if you can be the one that helps them through that, I think that's a really, really good business in a newsletter. The one thing I just think is that you probably can't write that newsletter for a 25-year-old man and a 60-year-old woman at the same time, or even a 40-year-old man and a 40-year-old woman. Like the ad is going to be like, you want like the TikTok influencer or whoever it is who is like, I thought I was so excited to be in the best shape of my life. Then I broke my leg when I stood up out of a chair because of this, right? If only I'd known about, these exercises in this app that's helped me to become the healthy version of my skinny self or whatever it is, right?
Damn, that's a good ad. Did you just write that on the spot?
That's all me. That's no.
Okay, so the big takeaway from your feedback, as I'm seeing, is you think that obviously with the scope of the audience, but I think it's the timing, right? So whereas I was looking at it from pre first shot, you're looking at it post shot. So you think that there's more meat on the bone, no pun intended, after even though, right, 50 to 75% of people stop taking it in a year, right, versus beforehand.
Well, I think the game you don't want to be in is the game that everybody else who's in this space is in, of trying
Yeah.
to predict when somebody's going to buy this thing and hitting the same people that everybody's spending a ton of money on. I think what
Right.
you want to do is you can go early, you can go late, you can actually target pretty broad just to people who are even interested in this, and just be like, hey, if you're doing this or if you're thinking of doing this,
Yeah,
here
like
are the
here's
things
what
you
you
need
do.
to be aware of. And like you can sign up for the free newsletter and keep on top of this stuff because you're still considering the decision. Maybe you'll consider for months, maybe you're saving up. Maybe you aren't sure. And then only then, when you actually start taking it, you'll pull the trigger, you'll pay for the app, you'll buy into all the other stuff. But I think you just don't want to be in that game of competing
Yeah,
with everyone else for like the purchase moment.
that's fair. And yeah, you probably don't want to be competing against big pharma. Growing your newsletter, it's probably going to be a losing proposition. I also like, as you were talking about it, and I'm sure there's like the support groups, the Facebook groups, but I love the idea, obviously the in-person meetups, but just kind of like an online community works super well. And then to my point about the second opinion from doctors, like you could literally get that from current users. So you can say like, oh well, it's a 35-year-old 2 months into his journey, and you're like, oh well, that's where I'm going to be in 2 months. So it's really helpful to see how he feels about it, if he's happy with his decision, and you kind of follow along with those people. And I think sharing those stories could be really powerful in the newsletter.
I mean, I think you can bring in like doctors and experts to reinforce basically the pitch that you're trying to sell people on, which should be into this specific, like the one that I know best that I would do just because I used to be a fitness coach ages ago. The one that I would go into is like the fitness side of things, right? So like hey, you now have to start working out in the gym. Otherwise,
Right.
bad things are going to happen. So here are the supplements. Here's everything you need to know. And this is like, it's really nice actually to be able to invent like a new category of people that you can talk to specifically for a fitness
Mm-hmm.
course, because they're all kind of the same thing. And it's just about how you can like differentiate and make yours different, right? Like, why is your supplement different? Are you putting in like a tiny bit of, I don't know what people who take Ozempic, like there's probably some mineral that on average they don't get enough of. So you
Right.
give them the option to like supplement with those ones or something, right? Like nothing pharmaceutical, obviously, just like stuff that other influencers are selling, like, YouTubers and stuff, basically. But with that very specific audience of people who are going through this. And I would try and narrow it down, like maybe even 25 to 40 is too much. Maybe it's 25 to 35. Maybe it's 25 to 30 of like, who are the single guys who are like, where are the guys who are basically kind of like not re-entering society, but like are getting to grips with like
Yeah.
being active for the first time, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. There's almost like a right, not just the nutritional level, but or on that side, but you could do like the psychologist comes on, right, to like talk about how you deal with it. I mean, you're probably gonna have tons of chicks, interested in you now. It's like you kind of have that glow up, right? You gotta deal with that. So that's yeah, there's a lot of interesting angles there. So okay, you convinced me. I think post Ozempic, post first shot is okay with me, because you could also capture those people who are considering it. So
Yeah, because
we'll
I
move that
imagine
timeline.
people are thinking about this for a while, presumably. I don't love the fear element of like all the things that can go wrong with Ozempic and everything. It's like, I'm sure that's true, and I'm sure people should be talking about it, and you're probably going to research that decision. If you're the person who is telling people about that, unless you're really going to prey on their fear and sell them something which is going to work better or that's going to prevent that from happening to them, which both isn't really super ethical, I would say, or realistic. I think you just want to stay away from that whole thing. It's like, why, if I were going to write a daily newsletter, you would not see one piece of bad news in that newsletter, because I want people to be really happy with me. I want to be able to work with sponsors. I want good stuff in there, positive vibes.
I don't know if I agree with that. I do think that there's something to be said about like, hey, if Ozempic's not right for you. So I was actually thinking I was being like super ethical here, because I was like, hey, here's the pros, here's the cons. Like, you're a big boy, girl. You need to make the decision for yourself. But I see from a business model perspective why it should be kind of post, and you should basically pick a side. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay. So I like your idea. So we're not going to call it fat chance. We're going to call it don't wait. or weight over, and it's going to be focused on 25 to 35-year-old men who have recently started taking Ozempic.
I like it. I still don't quite like I want a little bit more in the positioning of like, if this was the way you were doing it, I would want to be more in the aspirational way of doing it. I'd probably call it something like a club, like I would have the word club or something like that in there, or circle or some circle. Men's circle's a bit of a bad vibe, more of a club, I guess. But I would go for something like that and something more aspirational that almost doesn't really like, I don't think you want to lean on the weight loss part or
Instead of
slim.
Arnold's Plump Club, we could call it the Plump Club.
You can't call it Tyler's Plum Club. Okay. No, but seriously, like I think you.
That aside, I actually do. I like the idea of a club. It like that community feel. I'm actually shocked more people don't use that in their name or something like that, or like the society or something. It's a really good kind of tactic to, I feel like, to make people feel like part of a community.
I think something more aspirational as well, right? Like I bet a lot of people who are going through this, like part of it is that they're not quite so sure of their identity anymore, and they don't necessarily want to identify as someone who is on a weight loss journey or thinking about weight loss all the time. Like you have the magic thing now that has fixed this for you. Now we got to figure out the rest, and like let's make you this exciting person that you want to be, right? Let's talk about all the stuff that wasn't really necessarily something you were too concerned about because you had other things on your mind.
I love it. Okay, well, I think my big takeaway is this is a great idea, and if we ever did this, we'd make a ton of money. So if any of you guys do it out there, and any of you letterheads out in Letterland, let us know. We'd love to be part of it. And by that, I mean collect dividends.
The killer, like the one that would make this so much easier is if you went through this journey yourself. Like if you were someone who had been through this and sort of had it documented, and then you had gone and like built out this plan around it. You talked about the mistakes you made, the things that went well, the time you had to stop, the time you had to start again. If you had that, if you could have that credibility, I think it would make it much, much, much easier than
you're gonna make me go get a beach mod.
We're going to make you eat 10 donuts every day for a month, and then we're going to stick you on the Wegovy and see what happens. I
love it. All right, cool. Should we hop on to the last segment here today? I know you had something for me.
Oh yeah, we can do that real quick. I think we've done a good put in our time today already, but we can add in an extra 5 to 10. So this was just a quick thing that I wanted to run by you. I keep getting requests for coaching in my newsletter. People keep I get maybe at this point, I think I get on average like one a day, pretty much, like Monday through Friday. Someone will reach out and be like, hey, do you do consulting or do you do coaching calls? Could I book in an hour with you? Can you let me know your price? Every time I kind of have to say, look, I don't do this. I don't have time. I'm working full-time on Sparkloop. Like I can't jump in for an hour. And some of the time, like that is genuinely kind of true. Like I don't want to take on long-term coaching engagements. A lot of the time, sometimes I'm just like, look, if I were to name a price, I can tell that you're going to say no. So I'm not even going to bother to like tell you. I'm just going to say no. But a lot of the time, it's like I've done coaching before, and I really don't like that sort of like consulting, coaching, like hourly call format of like, hey, so you're going to pay me a couple $100 for an hour of my time. I'm going to jump on. You're going to spend 20 minutes explaining what the problem is. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. You're going to tell me you don't have like the data or the answers to those questions. And we're going to sit there and kind of like waste our time for the rest of the time because we can't actually get to the bottom of what's going on, right? So I was thinking about this and I was looking at what other people do because I was like, I love helping people and I would genuinely like to spend some time helping them, and I'm happy to make some money doing it. But I just don't like that sort of like coaching consulting format. So then I looked at what Justin Moore was doing with his newsletter with Creator Wizard, and he has this async coaching group, or this async like coaching offering, where the idea of like the async or the asynchronous is he basically, I think you pay like a couple of $100 a month, like $100, $200, something like that a month. And you don't get like live one-on-one time with him, but basically you can send him like a message, a video message, I think up to like once a week or something. And he will watch that message once a week. Like he'll sit down on a Wednesday, he'll watch your message. He will maybe ask for a couple of like clarifying things that you can get to him in your own time. And then he'll record a Loom or he'll send through like whatever he can to like basically give you like the good 15 minutes out of an hour long coaching call. Basically, like the 15 minutes is actually useful, right? And because it only takes him 10 to 15 minutes to do that rather than having to commit to the full hour, he can do a lot more of them, and he can commit to to a slightly cheaper price as well, right? He doesn't have to say it's going to be $500 for 1 hour a week. It can be $200 for the
Right.
same value that you're getting out of it in that week.
And
So,
he can outsource it to the Philippines.
well, some of it, yeah, as well. Yeah, I think he does do that, right? Some, I don't know if it's the Philippines, but he does definitely, like, he has some people helping him with some of that stuff for sure.
It's funny. I actually hate doing like true coaching calls. In it, I think it's for a different reason than you. I agree with all of what you said. That a lot of it is, yeah, you spend your time and you're like talking generalities, and they're like, oh, let me get back to you, and you're like, oh, well, are you going to pay for that follow up, and are we going to pay for that, that second call? So I think there's always that. What I've actually found is sometimes a lot of the value, if I say like, hey, you're going to get, 5 or let's say we're going to do 4 sessions together, right? Hour-long sessions. I feel like sometimes folks get so much value in that time period that they're only paying for my time, but they're not really paying for just like all of the effort and all of the trials and tribulations and all of the, work that went into like figuring those things out. And I'm not sure that they don't need to be paying for my, decade of experience. But what I found is like, people will just like sit there and they'll just ask you rapid fire questions like, how exactly would you do this? How exactly would you solve this problem? And you're kind of giving it to them. And you're like, wow, like I just gave you so much value and like dropped these things. I just saved you so much time. It was such like an outsized ROI. It's kind of like the reason I've stopped doing that and said like, hey, like if we're going to do this, the way I work with people on like a consulting basis is let's work together and like, let's do this, kind of together. And I like to drop in and be like, hey, I'm SEAL Team 6. I'm going to drop into your newsletter or the thing that you just want to start, and we're going to work on this together. And you're going to pay me, whatever flat monthly fee, and you're just basically going to get a ton of my time, and we're going to figure it out. Like we're not really going to think about hours. And yes, all that stuff that you would have gotten in the 4 or 5 sessions, like we're going to do, but then you're also going to be able to like do some of the work, send it to me for review. So I think it's almost like selfish from my perspective that I think like the coaching is like they get such an outsized value out of it that I think it's like it's not super worth it. So to your point about the async, like I think there is a lot of value in that because maybe it's like you do some like videos, right, that you send to just that select group of 10 people you're working with at a time, and you're giving it out to all of them, but you're getting a lot more in return, right, financially for what you're doing. And then I do like the idea of going back and forth with people, because I think that's the other big thing that you're missing, to your point, in kind of those one-on-one coaching is like there's no feedback loop. It's just kind of like you're talking at them. They're spending most of their time, jotting down notes or like trying to just like extract the most value out of it. I compare it to, right, like when I work with my lawyer, right? It's like, that you have that lawyer for, in 15-minute increments, and you're just trying to get as much value out of him when you're asking those questions as possible. And when he's, talking and being super long-winded, you're like, okay, yeah, but I have something else to ask you. Because as soon as you hit minute 16, you're getting charged for that 30 minutes, right? So I feel like to an extent, that's what the value exchange feels like on those one-on-one coaching calls. Whereas like I do think the async is like you can zoom out, and I think it's like worth your time, right? Because you're getting paid your worth and your decade plus experience in the newsletter space. But they're also getting more value because you have kind of that back and forth. So yeah, I like that async approach a lot, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's cool. I might try it out. I think just with like a group of like a small group of people. I can't do too much of it, but it would be interesting to see because I don't know why more people in the newsletter space don't do this. So there might be a reason, and I'd be interested to like find out, like, is it just that people don't go for it. Like the perceived value just isn't there somehow because they think, like I have that before, and I've had that with like people where I'm like, so you can take this course that I recorded or and pay X, or you can pay 10X and listen to me read out the exact same thing, but like live in a more inconvenient way for you. And people go, yeah, of course I'll pay the 10X thing to like listen to you say this live. It's going to be somehow more valuable, right? And so maybe it's like a perception thing.
Well, I mean, like truly, right? Like the fact, like people could go, and not that I'm saying like we're the greatest thing since sliced bread, but like the value that people could get out of this podcast by listening is probably no different than what they would get on the async call, right? Like, yes, it's like very exact to their situation. I get that, but all the stuff that we're saying here is probably going to be the same stuff that we talk about, a lot of the stuff we talk about on calls. But I think it's like this perception of like, okay, well, you're kind of spending one-on-one time with me, and like I don't need to go and listen to all these podcasts and stuff like that. But it's, yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing of like, why do you go? Now I'm comparing us to a Harvard MBA, but it's like, why do you go to a Harvard MBA? Like you could read all of that stuff, you get all that information in a book. It's like, it's not really about the information. It's kind of about more of like the relationship and kind of those one-on-one aspects. So I think there's a little bit of subtlety there, but yeah, I do wonder where like the perceived value lies. And I do think it is just in that like one-on-one kind of coaching. People feel better about paying for it.
Yeah, because I mean, at least they know that it applies to their specific situation as well, right?
Right.
I know about you go to the Harvard MBA. I go to like my dream is like I want to be like in the guy that you go to in newsletters, kind of like in a movie or like a TV show where like the bad guy gets shot by like a policeman, so they can't go to the doctor, so they have to go to like some shady knockoff like backstreet vet who also knows how to operate on humans. Like I want to be that guy. That's like that in the newsletter space. That's what I'm offering. I will operate on your newsletter for a fair price with or without health insurances. That's what I'm saying.
But through like back channels. So you're not going to do it. You're going to do it on like, what's the one that Microsoft, you're going to do it on like Skype or something, right? Like you're going to do it on like some
Microsoft
sketchy
Teams. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to do it on something like real weird, like that people haven't used, Periscope or something.
Yeah. I'm going to be the first person to offer newsletter consulting on Snapchat. So it's going to happen.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. But yeah, I think you should do it.
Cool. Well, I will think about it if I have enough time, and I'll report back on how it goes.
All right. We'll talk to you guys over on the other side.
See you next time.